Bring in retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey to maybe shed some light on what investigators are doing right now. How are they proceeding at this moment, Cheryl?
Well, I think everyone is focused on answering that also important question, which is the why. Any information that they can glean from search warrants that are being served on his residence, anything that's contained in there that might give them a little insight into his thought process leading up to this shooting. Obviously, investigators are going to want to talk to family members and friends of this gentleman. I think he was very target specific for a reason. I think my own personal belief is that maybe he had some beef or angst with those locations. Was he looking for his ex-wife? Is this a domestic violence kind of situation? And so there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered. And also, how did he get this purported illegal gun to have in California in California?
Yeah, all good questions. I think anyone looking at this too, Cheryl, will note that his age is unusual for a mass shooting, 72. And then he's also a regular at that First Dance studio in Monterey Park, as you mentioned. What questions do those two things raise for you as far as motive? And you did touch upon the one that perhaps this could be a domestic. But what about that age thing?
Well, we can't pigeonhole these kinds of incidents into what we think is, a normal suspect, if you will, if there is even such a thing. People are motivated for different reasons and act on that in ways that we can't fathom. Obviously, him being Asian as well understands the importance of the Lunar New Year and the celebrations that go on around that and what it means. I heard someone say that, they celebrate the Lunar New Year with the mindset of everything that happens good on that evening will go forward for the rest of the year. And so was it his intent to create havoc and cause chaos, death, and destruction for the rest of the year? Is that what he was hoping for his community? And so, these are some of these questions we will never get the answer to because he's not here. But I think he targeted those ballrooms very specifically and with some specificity.
And those ballrooms are two of the crime scenes here, right? You have the site of the shooting. You also have the site where the suspect was disarmed. What are the investigators doing with all of these crime scenes, including his home?
Well, making a link, trying to find the connection. And obviously, he's an elderly gentleman. His victims were his contemporaries. They were also elderly, 50, 60, and 70-year-old victims. And so perhaps in his mind, he thought these were easy targets. These were people who would be vulnerable and maybe just cow to his aggression. And thankfully, there was a young man at that second location in Alhambra who had the strength and the stamina to take him on, challenge him, and wrestle that gun out of his hand. He could have created this situation during the day when there were thousands of people, young people, children on scene, but he specifically waited until later in the evening.
You mentioned the weapon, this extended large capacity magazine that he had on his handgun, banned in California right now. How could he have acquired that? Would he have acquired that before it was banned? And what is the remedy here when you're looking at a shooter who has something like that that is banned and yet is still able to access it?
Well, that's something that we'll have to, find out in the weeks and months to come once this investigation concludes. It's quite possible that he purchased that weapon somewhere else. I mean, we see he gets around, right? He lives in Hemet, he's in Alhambra, found in Torrance. And so perhaps he purchased that weapon legally in another state and then transported it back to California. And that's why he has it. So I don't know. Is he even able to legally possess a handgun here in California? Law enforcement can only do so much, even with all of the background checks and loopholes that have been covered. Still more needs to be done. You can only do so much, and that's why it's so important that community pay attention. If you see something, say something and do something, as this young man did.
Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, we thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you.